In this video, I'm going to create a server of Android Chatter application in PHP. So let's get started. So what is the purpose of this server? This server would actually allow us to authenticate the user. For example, if anyone have a username demo1 and demo2 and that is stored in a database, then with the help of this server we would be able to authenticate that user by matching up the strings and as well as different combinations, so that it would help us to check it out that whether that user is a valid user and registered with us or not. And it will also we will also provide the sign up processes, like for example if a user first time register himself in here, so the data would be stored in a database. So to extract the data and match it with the user authentication purpose, we're going to use the server, and as well as for testing the web application programming interface we're going to use the server, and as well as for many other purposes we're going to use this server. So let's get started. So first of all, I'm going to declare a few variables that are going to be actually holding out the database name, the host name, password, and all other things. So I'm going to use db, and that will be actually a database. So that will be actually database host. I'm going to give it a name, and db username, db password, and db name, which will be actually a database name. So I'm going to fill out these areas later on. Now I'm going to make a connection by instantiating a new MySQL class. So for that purpose, I'm going to create a new variable. db is equal to new MySQL. There will be like SQL, and then I'm going to put on, in this case, I'm going to provide like db host, db username, db password, and db name. So here it is. Now we have actually instantiated the MySQL class and provided the parameters to it, like host, username, password, and name, and with the help of these parameters we're going to be actually creating a connection with our database. Now I'm going to create a username variable which we're going to be actually, in which I'm going to setting out a condition and going to be checking out that whether a request for username has been set out or not. If a request for a username has been set out and more than one time or more than 2 times, then we're going to actually request and process that username request. Otherwise, we're going to send out the null. So I'm going to create username is equal to, and then I'm going to provide is set, and then I'm going to check it out that whether the username which is actually requested the name that is, and the other request is so if it is greater than 0, equal to 0, then actually request it, and that's it. And if it is not, then it will return a null. So it will be like null, and that's it. So what we have done in here, that if the request of the username has been set out, for example if the person is actually for example if a person first time get in the application and try to give his username into a login box, then a request would be set out and would be called as isSet. And if he's trying to give this username for the first time, then it will be definitely greater than 0. So it is also a true. So we're going to actually process his request. If both of the conditions or any of the condition is false, then we're going to return the null. I'm going to do the same kind of step with the password. For that, I'm going to create a password variable, and that's it. And I'm going to use isSet. In fact, I'm going to make it in all small letter. Okay, and then if the request for password, that's it. And now I'm going to use Okay, so if the request for password has been set out, so I'm going to check it out the condition that if the request for this password has been set out, then multiply the MD5. That is, actually I'm using the MD5 function in here, and I'm going to provide the request password, otherwise null. So what I have done in here is I've used the MD5 function. MD5 function actually allows us to encrypt the password and provide a kind of MD5 kind of encryption. So it is a very powerful kind of encryption, and it is very difficult to back up. I'm going to provide the same kind of stuff with the port also. So I'm going to create port is equal to is set, and that is, and I'm going to provide a port in here, and if it is true, then provide a port number, that is port, otherwise null. That's it. Now we're going to be creating actually a variable which we're going to be actually used for testing the database connection, that whether the database connection is successful or not. So if the database connection will be successful, then we're going to return the successful, otherwise not. So I'm going to create a variable action is equal to, and then I'm going to provide is set. I'm going to use request, so request action would be given to it. That's it. And now I'm just going to cover up this with yes, if the request is given, then process it, action, and that's it. Otherwise you're going to provide a null. And one thing I'm going to have to do is I'm going to have to change out this bracket, because in here not, but in here, because we are actually then we'll be getting a syntax error, because actually the bracket is with this one and not with this one in here. And yes, this bracket is now fulfilled, and actually this bracket should be fulfilled now in this case. And I'm going to save it everything, hit enter. So I'm going to check it out that if the action is equal to the test web application programming interface, then we're going to perform a few actions. So if action equal to test web API, I'm going to tell you that what is test web application programming interface. So before that, you're just going to have to understand that it is a simple application programming interface, but the website server, for example, it is actually allowing us to perform a database kind of connection, like testing the database connection and other kind of activities. So I'm just going to cover it, and then I'm going to provide another if statement, which would be about connection of the database, that whether the database connection is true or false. So if it's true, then I'm going to return successful. It is false, then I'm going to return nothing. I'm going to check out database, which is actually this variable, and I'm just going to create out that if database connection is possible, is true, so do this. So what does this arrow means? This arrow is actually in Java language, this could be like db.connection, and that's it. So we're going to be calling a method of test connection in here, test connection. So we are actually calling a method of test connection in Java like this, and now we are dealing in PHP, so we're going to call this method via this sentence. So I'm just going to remove it, and then in here I'm going to add echo successful exit, and else you're gonna provide echo failed exit, and I'm just gonna make it a function. Sorry, just gonna, that's it. Now we have actually an action. So if the database test connection is valid and these database host username and password are matched correctly, then we actually successfully executed the action method, the action variable in here.